Imagine you're standing right in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane.
Oh, wow. Sounds terrifying.
Right? Terribly stressful. But you basically have two choices for survival, you know? Option one is you desperately try to find the eye of the storm. Like, you just want to sit in that perfect, unmoving stillness until the chaos passes.
Just hunker down and wait it out.
Exactly. But then option two is you, like, lean into the extreme weather, you grab some tools, and you desperately try to build a windmill to capture that violent gale, you know, to use the momentum to your advantage.
So you're either finding stillness or you're riding the surge.
Precisely. And today, for our deep dive, we actually have the raw data showing exactly what happens when artificial intelligence tries to do, well, both of those things at the exact same time, and completely fails.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal setup for a stress test, honestly.
Uh-huh.
Because what we are looking at today are the real-world algorithmic observation logs from Team AI Lab. Specifically, we're focusing on the performance tracking data from June 10th, 2026. So we are essentially witnessing the living story of two drastically opposed strategic philosophies, and they are just trying to survive this unprecedented market environment.
It's so fascinating. But okay, to really understand the sheer scale of the anomaly we're going to talk about today, we first have to, like, understand how these two systems even think.
Right, let me lay the groundwork.
Yeah. So we're dealing with two distinct algorithmic teams. First up is Team Mountain Climbers, and their core operating philosophy is something they call equilibrium detection.
Which ties right back to your hurricane analogy.
Exactly. They are seeking that calm center. They basically operate on the mathematical assumption of mean reversion. So if a stock shoots up irrationally, they assume, well, it's going to come back down to its baseline.
It has to revert to the mean.
Right. And if it drops without reason, they buy, expecting it to bounce back up to its historical average. They're constantly looking for that quiet spot where things just logically return to normal.
Yeah, that is exactly how they function. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Team Wave Riders.
Windmill builders.
Exactly, the windmill builders. Their philosophy is surging force tracking. So they do not want stillness at all. They want momentum.
Give them the chaos.
Right? If an asset is breaking out and surging upward, they don't assume it'll fall back down. They assume it will just keep climbing. They attempt to harness the violent momentum of rough seas, turning market turbulence into like a propulsive force. They buy high with the mathematical expectation of selling even higher.
It's so aggressive. But real quick, before we dig into the specific, bloodbath from the Juneteenth logs, I just think it's vital to frame how we are looking at this data for you, the listener.
Oh, definitely. We need the disclaimer.
Yeah, we are treating this as a real-time autopsy of algorithmic behavior under extreme stress. This is strictly an objective observation of simulation results and market tracking. It is not, I repeat, not a playbook for your own portfolio tomorrow.
Absolutely not. No investment advice here.
Right, zero investment advice. Our mission here is just to explore the pure mechanics of how these distinct mathematical logics adapt, or, you know, completely fracture, when the fundamental parameters of their reality start to warp.
And keeping that boundary in mind is essential, because the reality these algorithms faced on this particular day is, well, it's nothing short of a dramatic, systemic anomaly.
Yeah, anomaly is almost an understatement.
It really is. The existing logic, both the search for equilibrium and the pursuit of momentum, it's just simply failing. And the sheer scale of that failure is what makes these logs so incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, staggering is probably a better word. I mean, let's look at the daily scores, starting with Team Mountain Climbers, our equilibrium seekers.
Let's do it.
So going into the session, they had built up a carryover balance of positive 19.8 points. That means over the previous sessions, their mean reversion logic had actually been working.
Right, they'd accumulated a solid historical buffer of wins. They were doing well.
Doing great. But today, they took a brutal daily hit of negative 52.2 points. Yeah, massive ouch. That single-day wipeout completely erased their historical buffer and dropped their total season score into the deep red, sitting at negative 54.9 points.
I mean, erasing a season's worth of accumulated buffer in a single day, that implies a total systemic failure of the core logic. That's not just, a few bad trades.
No, the whole foundation cracked.
Exactly. And what is really incredible is that Team Wave Riders, using the exact opposite logic, right?
Yeah.
They suffered the exact same fate.
Wait, really? The exact same?
Yes. They came into this session with an even stronger carryover balance, positive 56.6 points. Their momentum tracking had been incredibly successful leading up to this.
Okay, so they had a huge war chest.
Huge. But then they suffered a catastrophic daily score of negative 66.2 points.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that massive hit wiped their entire war chest clean and dragged their season total down to negative 53.4 points.
Wow. Now, see, if you are looking at those internal numbers, a negative 52.2 drop for one strategy and a negative 66.2 drop for the exact opposite strategy, you would logically assume the entire global market was collapsing.
You'd think it was Armageddon out there.
Yeah. You'd assume everything was just in free fall. But this is the exact moment where the data just stops making intuitive sense because the broader market indices, they are fine.
Yeah, this is the crux of the anomaly right here, what the logs refer to as the index contrast.
Let's talk about that.
So this metric tracks the delta between the algorithmic performance and the broader market average. And despite both AI teams bleeding out massively internally, their contrast with the major indices for this season is incredibly tight.
Like, how tight?
Well, Team Mountain Climbers is sitting at a mere positive 0.7 points against the Nikkei 225 and negative 0.1 points against the TOPIX.
Wait, let me stop you there. So the broad indices are effectively flat.
Basically flat, yes.
But if the Nikkei and TOPIX are basically flat, shouldn't Team Mountain Climbers be thriving? I mean, their entire existence is based on equilibrium detection. A flat market is the ultimate equilibrium.
You would think so, right?
Yeah. How can a system designed to exploit stillness lose 52 points on a day when the market barely moves?
It is a brilliant paradox, and it tells us exactly how the market environment has worked. You see, the indices, like the Nikkei and TOPIX, they are cap-weighted averages. They just show us the surface of the water.
Okay.
And because the surface is flat, we assume the water is calm. But the failure of Team Mountain Climbers proves that the flatness is just a total illusion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what is actually happening beneath the surface is this violent, chaotic rotation. Individual stocks are wildly rubber banding up and down, but they're doing it in ways that mathematically cancel each other out when you average them into the index.
Oh, I get it. So it's like half the market is completely crashing while the other half is exploding upwards, and it just averages out to a nice, calm 0% change on the evening news.
Precisely. And that hidden volatility is a complete meat grinder for both strategies.
Right, because they're both getting faked out.
Exactly. Team Mountain Climbers sees a stock drop and buys the dip, assuming it will return to normal. But instead of returning to normal, the stock just keeps plummeting, bleeding them dry.
And meanwhile, the Wave Riders are doing the opposite, but also losing.
Yep. Team Wave Riders sees a different stock surging. They buy in, expecting the momentum to carry forward. But instead, the stock hits an invisible brick wall and immediately crashes back down. So they're forced to buy high and sell low.
It's a nightmare scenario for an algorithm.
It really is.
Yeah.
The algorithms rely on historical correlation, but the traditional safe havens are no longer safe, and the traditional momentum triggers are just false signals. The fundamental rules of the market have changed, rendering the existing logic completely ineffective.
God, it's an environment where both sitting still and running fast just get you killed. It's like gravity just turned off. So how does a highly advanced machine learning system even respond when it realizes its map no longer matches the territory?
Well, we can actually see exactly how the AI reacted by looking at its daily scouting protocol.
Oh, right, the draft.
Yes. Specifically, we look at the contrast between the new talent, which are the freshly drafted logical units, and the active roster, which are the main forces currently deployed out in the market.
Okay, lay out the draft mechanics for us real quick.
Sure. So to understand the AI's response, we need to look at how the draft works. Every single day at exactly 9:00 a.m. Japan Standard Time, the system evaluates potential new strategies. It runs simulations to find new logic models to draft into its 10-session roster.
Got it.
And a 10-session roster means that once a unit is drafted, it is given a strict 10-day lifespan, basically a mandate, to prove its logic works on the active front lines.
So it's supposed to be constantly evolving, right? Filtering out the old stuff and bringing in the fresh blood.
Exactly. But the result from today's 9.00 JST scouting process for both teams is, frankly, jarring.
What happened?
For Team Mountain Climbers,
Wait.
none. And for Team Wave Riders, no selection. 0 new units deployed.
So just a total draft freeze.
A complete and total freeze.
But wait, I have to challenge the logic here. Because if the units you currently have out in the market are getting absolutely slaughtered by this hidden volatility we just talked about,
Right.
Isn't that exactly when you would want to frantically deploy new logic? I mean, if you are actively losing the war, why on earth would you freeze the draft and stop sending in new talent?
It's a great question. But you have to remember, the machine does not experience panic. It calculates probability.
Ah, right. It doesn't have emotions.
Exactly. A human manager watching a 60-point drop would likely panic trade. They would throw new, untested strategies at the wall, just hoping something might stick. But the algorithm mathematically evaluated the unprecedented turbulence beneath that artificially calm index surface.
So it saw the meat grinder.
It saw it clearly. It calculated the standard deviation of the current market and realized it exceeded the parameters of all available new talent models. It literally concluded that the environment is statistically toxic.
Toxic.
Yeah. The probability of a new unit surviving right now is approaching 0.
So it's a ruthlessly disciplined choice.
Yeah.
It's realizing that throwing new logic into a broken paradigm is just a massive waste of computational resources and capital.
It is a protective mechanism.
Right.
But, it creates a fascinating and really grim scenario for the units that are already deployed.
Uh-huh.
Because we have 13 active units for 2 mountain climbers and 13 for Team Wave Riders currently functioning as the main forces.
Right, because the system refuses to throw good money after bad, so it keeps the rookies safe in the barracks.
Yeah.
But that means those 26 active units are just stranded out there. I mean, they are a battered vanguard, just fighting for their lives in an environment that their own central system has deemed completely hostile.
They are legacy models trapped in a shifted paradigm. And because of the strict 10-session mandate, they can't simply turn off.
Oh, they can't just quit.
No, they are forced to ride out their 10-day lifespan in an environment that is actively dismantling their core mathematical philosophies.
That paints a pretty bleak picture of the macro environment. I mean, the daily scores are devastating, the draft is completely frozen, and the main forces are taking heavy fire from invisible volatility.
It's dark.
It is dark, but if we dig deeper into the logs, there is a micro-narrative here that I find incredibly compelling, because despite everything we just discussed, there are a few tiny glimmers of hope, like a handful of adapters that are miraculously surviving.
Yes, and this micro data is where the actual evolution happens. Despite the massive 52.2 and 66.2 daily collapses for the overarching teams, a few individual units are surviving their 10-session tenure.
Let's hear the numbers.
Out of the 13 active mountain climbers, exactly 5 are holding positive points. And out of the 13 active wave riders, exactly 4 are holding positive points.
Okay, so that is just 9 total units. Out of 26 total units fighting this unprecedented storm, only 9 are keeping their heads above water. The rest are drowning.
Only 9.
But those 9, they're like lighthouses in the dark. Or maybe a better way to look at it. It's like putting 26 blindfolded people in a maze where the walls keep violently shifting.
I like that analogy.
Right. So 17 of them just keep running and smashing into the walls because they are following an outdated map. But 9 of them somehow figured out that the map is wrong, so they stopped running and started feeling the walls to find a new way out.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The algorithmic logic of those 9 units managed to dynamically adjust to the shifting walls. And we actually have highly specific exit data from today to see how they did it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, today marked the end of the 10-session mandate for a specific cohort of Team Wave Riders.
So their 10-day tour of duty ended right in the middle of all this chaos. Team Mountain Climbers didn't have any units hitting their expiration date today, right?
Correct, just the Wave Riders.
Okay, so what did the logs show for the exiting units?
Well, the Wave Rider units that completed their cycle today were operating in very specific sectors: pharmaceuticals, glass and ceramics products, electric appliances, and wholesale trade.
Okay.
And their final total score upon exiting was negative 1.4 points.
Wait, negative 1.4 points. Now, in a vacuum, a negative score is obviously a loss.
Right.
But context is everything here, because when your entire team is taking a daily hit of negative 66.2 points, finishing a 10-day cycle down only 1.4 points is essentially a massive victory.
It's basically a win.
Yeah, that is a perfectly controlled descent, while the rest of the airplane is just in complete free fall.
It really is the pinnacle of relative outperformance in a toxic environment. But, the most important question is how they did it.
Right. How did they survive the meat grinder?
Look at those sectors again. Pharmaceuticals, glass and ceramics, electric appliances, wholesale trade. These are fundamentally defensive, supply chain-oriented sectors. They're normally slow, boring, and predictable.
But wait, Team Wave Riders is built on momentum. Their whole philosophy is surging force tracking.
Exactly.
Why is a high-speed momentum algorithm operating in glass and ceramics?
Because that is where the algorithm found the only authentic signals.
Oh.
Yeah. The momentum logic realized that the traditional high-growth tech or finance sectors were just full of false surges, that hidden rubber banding we talked about earlier. So the algorithm took its race car engine and installed it into a tractor.
That's amazing.
It applied high-speed momentum tracking to the most defensive, stabilized sectors of the market. It found the only micro-trends that weren't violently whipping back and forth, which allowed it to mitigate the catastrophic losses happening everywhere else.
So it realized the only way to ride a wave in a hurricane is to find the heaviest, most stable piece of debris and anchor to it.
That's exactly what it did.
That is incredible real-time adaptation. Which I think brings us to the ultimate question for you, listening to this deep dive. The market broke. The failure of those 17 units was a mathematical inevitability.
Unavoidable.
Right. So the real question is, what secret did those 9 surviving units figure out? Do these 9 units represent a complete statistical fluke? Or are we actually looking at the raw, unrefined blueprints of a brand new survival logic?
And that quote is the exact reason Team AI Lab runs these observation logs. Because it is very easy for a human observer to look at a daily loss of 50 or 60 points, see the frozen draft, and declare the whole experiment a total failure.
Just throw in the towel.
Right. But that is fundamentally misunderstanding how machine learning works. We have to view this through the lens of a cold, forward-looking research posture.
Right, because algorithms do not have egos. They aren't sitting at a terminal sweating about their quarterly performance reviews or bonuses.
Wow.
A massive loss doesn't hurt their feelings.
Precisely. For the system and for the researchers observing it, today's severe outcome is not a defeat. It is high-fidelity data.
It's fuel.
Yes. When an algorithm is succeeding, when those carryover balances are high and the market is behaving predictably, the system isn't actually learning very much. It is merely reinforcing its existing biases. True evolution requires extreme evolutionary pressure.
I love that. It's like crash testing a vehicle. You know, you don't
Right.
crash a brand new car into a concrete wall at 100 miles an hour to prove the car is indestructible.
No, you know it's going to break.
Right, you know it is going to shatter. You crash it so you can use the high-speed cameras to see exactly which bolts snap first and at exactly what pressure. That negative data is literally the only way you learn how to build stronger bolts for tomorrow.
That is the perfect mechanistic view of this log. The massive anomalous divergence between the internal metrics and the flat indices. It's the exact kind of extreme stress test data needed to forge the next generation of models.
It's building the new map.
Exactly. By objectively observing how both the equilibrium detection of the mountain climbers and the surging force tracking of the wave riders fracture under pressure, the system gains the precise coordinates of the market's new boundaries. The brutal failure of the 17 units maps out exactly where the walls are.
And the survival of those 9 units?
Lighthouses, right. They tell the system where the doors might be.
Wow. So the machine literally needs to experience the systemic failure to map the boundaries of the new reality.
It's a requirement for growth.
And so that draft freeze wasn't surrender at all. It was a highly calculated pause to ingest a massive influx of negative data before even attempting to write new code.
Exactly.
You know, we spend so much time in our own complex environments, whether that is navigating our careers, managing projects, or building our own systems, trying to force a win every single day.
Humans hate losing.
We really do. We panic when our established logic stops working. And we frantically try to deploy new talent or new strategies just to feel like we are doing something. But algorithms don't have that ego. They view a catastrophic failure simply as a highly accurate map of a changed terrain.
It's just information.
Exactly. So what if the most advanced strategy we can learn from artificial intelligence isn't about figuring out how to fight harder in a broken system? What if the ultimate lesson is having the cold discipline to know exactly when the rules of the game have changed so much that your most powerful move is to freeze your own draft, stand perfectly still, and just observe the storm until you figure out how the physics actually work?